Chapter 296. The Arrogant Yunhuan. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Yunhuan raised his crystal card and again placed a higher bid, 630,000 spiritual crystals. It seemed that he was going to bid against the Commandery Prince of Minshu to the end. The Commandery Prince of Minshu was in an extremely bad mood. The expression in his eyes grew worse as he glared at Yunhuan. I've already given the jade storage bracelet to you. How dare you bid against me for the spatial ring? You really think that I dare not to offend the Yan's family? An elder with a wrinkly face stood behind the Commandery Prince of Minshu with a cold expression in his eyes. He's just a junior. How dare he be so arrogant in Omen Ridge? Your Majesty, won't you give him the spatial ring and let me teach him a lesson when the auction finishes? Forget it. He's just a junior. The Commandery Prince of Minshu once again raised the price. He said, 650,000 spiritual crystals. Yunhuan raised the crystal card and said, 670,000 spiritual crystals. The Commandery Prince of Minshu frowned. He placed his final bid, 700,000 spiritual crystals. The Commandery Prince stood up and glared at Yunhuan. He said, Child Yan, this is my final price. If you can offer a higher price, then you can take the spatial ring away. Hearing this, Yunhuan was greatly relieved. To be honest, 700,000 spiritual crystals almost reached the limit he could endure. Fortunately, the Commandery Prince had given up first. Yunhuan calmly raised the crystal card once again. 701,000 spiritual crystals. Seeing the price on the crystal card in Yunhuan's hand, the Commandery Prince clenched his fist. The anger in eyes was even stronger. He said, Damn it, this junior is deliberately insulting me. Gilao, please crucify him after the auction. 701,000 spiritual crystals. Once. 701,000. Just when people thought that the spatial ring was to be won by Yunhuan, Zhang Yuochen slowly raised his crystal card. 750,000 spiritual crystals. Bai Xuling's eyes lit up. She immediately shouted, 750,000 spiritual crystals. Any higher bids? Yunhuan's eyes sank, as he stared at Zhang Yuochen in anger. He had never expected that Zhang Yuochen would interfere just when he'd almost gotten the spatial ring. Yunhuan looked at Chen Xia. She was staring at him with deep expectation in her eyes, which seemed to remind him, bid quickly. You told me that you would give it to me. Don't be a coward at such a critical moment. Yunhuan clenched his teeth. It was as difficult for him to lift the crystal card, like raising a large mountain. Eventually, he said, 760,000 spiritual crystals. 800,000 spiritual crystals. Zhang Yuochen appeared to be greatly relaxed as he raised the crystal card once again. Yunhuan was furious. Zhang Yuochen, you are just a prince from an inferior commandery. Can you really offer 800,000 spiritual crystals? Zhang Yuochen certainly could not offer 700,000 spiritual crystals. However, he was the one who had actually sent the spatial ring to auction. Therefore, he did not worry about the price. Huang Yanshan said, I suppose the heir of the Yan's family can't actually afford a spatial ring? If you can't afford it, then you'd better not talk big. Others may despise you. Chen Xia also showed a bit of disappointment. Reluctantly she said, Hey, forget it. Child Yan, I don't want this spatial ring that much. Just give it to Zhang Yuochen. We can't win against him. Hearing Chen Xia's words, Yunhuan quickly grew more furious. Sister Xia, you don't have to worry about it. I will win the spatial ring and give it to you. I don't believe that he can be richer than me. Actually, Yunhuan was a bit worried that Zhang Yuochen was deliberately bidding up the price. However, on second thought, he was concerned that if he didn't increase the price, Zhang Yuochen would purchase the spatial ring. If Zhang Yuochen could not offer the spiritual crystals, he would be severely punished by the Martial Market Bank. It was based on this idea that Yunhuan again bad with Zhang Yuochen. However, he could never suspect that Zhang Ruochen was actually the owner of the spatial ring. 810,000 spiritual crystals. Zhang Yuochen raised the crystal card. 900,000 spiritual crystals. 910,000 spiritual crystals. 1,000,000 spiritual crystals. Zhang Yuochen raised the price dramatically once again. Every time Zhang Yuochen raised the price, Shang Kiki sitting next to him trembled. He was really worried that Zhang Yuochen was just bluffing. What would he do if could not afford the spatial ring after winning it? Many people in the auction house were also frightened. Zhang Yuochen is bidding too high. Where can he get so many spiritual crystals? Someone asked anxiously. Many people felt that Zhang Yuochen was being very arrogant, even more arrogant than Yunhuan, who was from a half-saint's family after all. The commandery prince of Minxiu was delighted, so delighted that he almost laughed out. Great. Yunwu commandery has a good son, right? Just bid up the price like this and ruin the Yan's family. Your Majesty, what's going on here? I'm a little confused. Even if Zhang Yuochen is the prince consort of Cayenne's Yui commandery and he has the support of commandery princess Yanjun, there's no way he could afford so many spiritual crystals at one time. Is he not afraid that he won't be able to afford it? Asked the elder standing behind him. The commandery prince of Minxiu grinned. He said, that's because you don't know a secret. What secret? The commandery prince of Minxiu laughed. The owner of the spatial ring is the hall master of the silver-gowned elders hall, Lei Jing. Hearing this, the elder suddenly understood and laughed. He said, I see. Since Zhang Yuochen is Lei Jing's disciple, he must be his assistant. It is really unlucky for the junior of the Yan's family to be competing with Zhang Yuochen. Almost all the big shots who had received letters from Lei Jing understood what was going on here. Many people were waiting for a good show, wondering to what degree Zhang Yuochen, the assistant, could bid up the price. How come the Yan's family has such an idiot? Can't he see that Zhang Yuochen is an assistant, even an unwise assistant? Han Li, master of the Yuntai suzerain, laughed. Han Kui had been staring at Zhang Yuochen. Why do you say that? I think he is very smart. Otherwise, how could Yunhuan be cheated? Han Li shook his head. Of course he's not smart. People who know that Zhang Yuochen is Lei Jing's disciple are sure to defend him. It is not wise for Lei Jing to ask him to be the assistant. If I were to do it, I would definitely ask someone that people don't know. Han Kui said, so you mean it was Master Lei who did not do a good job? Who did you think I was talking about? Zhang Yuochen? Han Li shook his head. Zhang Yuochen is just a junior, nothing to talk about really. In Han Li's opinion, Zhang Yuochen was just a junior of the Earth realm. It was difficult to tell what kind of achievements he would make in the future. Such a junior was naturally not qualified to be noticed by him. Zhang Yuochen once again raised the crystal card. 1,100,000 spiritual crystals. Yunhuan was in a cold sweat. He raised the crystal card again, trembling. 1,150,000 spiritual crystals. Sitting next to Yunhuan, Chen Xie could clearly see the sweat on his forehead and feel his quick aura. It was obviously an auction. Why did she feel like they were risking their lives? On the contrary, Zhang Yuochen had been relaxed and talked with Huang Yanchen cheerfully and humorously from time to time. Chen Xie knew better than anyone else how many spiritual crystals Huang Yanchen could dispatch. She knew that his confidence was not because of Huang Yanchen's support. Since it was not Huang Yanchen who was supporting him, who could it be? Chen Xie felt that she was increasingly unable to understand Zhang Yuochen. She always felt that he was not as simple as he seemed to be on the surface. She seemed to have underestimated him. Zhang Yuochen decided to use a dose of powerful medicine and raised the price considerably. 1,500,000 spiritual crystals. 1,510,000 spiritual crystals. Yunhuan bid again. However, he trembled. Just as he raised his bid, he suddenly understood. Why had Zhang Yuochen suddenly increased the price to 1,500,000 spiritual crystals? 1,510,000 spiritual crystals exceeded the number that he could control. He was nervous to his limit. He kept staring at Zhang Yuochen, hoping he would once again bid up the price. But to his disappointment, Zhang Yuochen thought for a moment, looked at Huang Yanchen, and softly shook his head. Quietly he said, that's it. According to Zhang Yuochen's estimation, Yunhuan should have reached his limit. Even if he continued to provoke Yunhuan, he would probably ignore his face and give up the spatial ring. Zhang Yuochen was still hoping to make money from auctioning the spatial ring, so it was naturally impossible for him to buy it. Yunhuan was just the man to pay the bill. Huang Yanjun understood what Zhang Yuochen was thinking. She said, Since Child Yan is so dedicated to that spatial ring, let's give it to him. Yunhuan immediately said, "No, no, I don't want to buy the spatial ring anymore. I think it's better to give it to you. You can bid again, and this time, I will certainly not increase the price." Huang Yanchen stared at Yunhuan like he was an idiot. She said, "Why should we bid up the price when you have already won the spatial ring? What's more, there are still 3 space treasures, which may be better. Why do we need to compete for this one? 1,510,000 spiritual crystals. Once. 1,510,000 spiritual crystals. Twice. 1,510,000 spiritual crystals 3 times. Sold. Congratulations to the 793rd guest for winning the spatial ring. Now, let's welcome today's next item. Although Yunhuan had won the spatial ring, his face was rather ugly, and he was in tears. He was thinking about how he was going to explain this to his family. Maybe it's not a loss to bid 1,510,000 spiritual crystals for the spatial ring. After all, it is a space treasure. The leader may not punish me. Yunhuan's face was pale as he tried to reassure himself. Chen Xie immediately brought him back to reality. She said delightedly, "Child Yan, you are generous. No wonder you are the heir of the Yan's family. I really appreciate you winning me the spatial ring. You are so generous." "What?" Yunhuan exclaimed. Chen Xie squinted her beautiful eyes and said, "Child Yan, you did say that you would give me the spatial ring, didn't you?" "Yes, I heard it too." Child Yan is truly the model of our generation. In order to pursue junior sister apprentice Chen, you bid 1,510,000 spiritual crystals for that spatial ring. I really admire you," said Chang Kiki. Yunhuan squeezed out an ugly smile.